My name is Evan Harper, and I am 32 years old, living in a small town called Maplewood Springs. This place is beautiful, surrounded by lush trees and the occasional whisper of the wind through the leaves. I had always thought of myself as a peaceful guy, someone who loved to spend weekends hiking or training for marathons. My life was simple, but I was content, until my neighbor decided to become human pollution. His name is Greg, and he is the kind of person who thinks the world exists just for him. He is boastful, selfish, and somehow always manages to find a way to irritate everyone around him. I used to think it was all harmless until one summer day when the peace I cherished was trampled on. Greg had decided to transform his backyard into what he called his personal training arena. It started innocently enough. Some weights, a few mats, and lots of loud music, which I could tolerate. But soon he added all sorts of obnoxious outdoor equipment, a punching bag, ropes to climb, and to top it all off, a golf simulator that he used to practice his swing before dawn while blaring the commentary from old matches. At first, I confronted him about the din. I expressed my annoyance and asked if he could tone it down, especially in the early hours. Greg waved me off, casually dismissing my concerns with the attitude that he was just living his best life. After that day, I gave up trying to reason with him, feeling more like an intruder in my own home than a neighbor. The continuous noise and chaos began to gnaw at me, affecting my personal and professional life. My focus waned, my patience thinned, and my love for my peaceful surroundings turned to resentment. I knew I had to do something, but I was not exactly a confrontational guy. I started looking for ways to solve my problem. I considered reporting Greg to the Homeowners Association, but I hesitated. I had seen other neighbors do that before, and it only escalated tensions. Instead, I tried to outsmart Greg in subtle ways. I bought a sound machine and started playing soothing ocean waves at the same early hours, hoping he would get the hint. But of course, that only fueled his need to turn up the volume, and the cycle of irritation continued. The stress I was under only grew. After about a month of this, I reached a breaking point. I would sit in my living room, grinding my teeth together as Greg laughed loudly with his friends on weekends. The neighbors began to grumble, and I found solace only in my running shoes. Running became my escape. I could at least put on my headphones and drown out his racket while I lost myself in the rhythm of my footfalls. But still, the frustration festered. I even dreamed about confronting him in exaggerated, fantastical ways, telling him how he shook my world upside down, and how deserving he was of a taste of his own medicine. In my darkest moments, there was one Saturday night when Greg hosted a party that spilled into my backyard. Loud laughter and raucous cheers erupted late into the evening. I could feel my blood boiling, and I snapped. I had lost all hope of reason, and I decided that I could not let this continue. I concocted a plan that I thought might just push him over the edge, something he wouldn't see coming. I knew he had a golf tournament coming up, and he was obsessively practicing every day. So I thought, why not mess with his prized simulator? Late that night, I sneaked into his backyard while he slept. I had taken a bucket of old paint that I had stored in my shed, and under the cover of darkness, I transformed a perfectly good golf ball into a colorful rainbow disaster. I snuck back out just as the sun began to rise, my heart racing from the thrill of what I had just done. This was it. I was surely going to shake him up. The next morning, Greg discovered the mess, and the following days were utter chaos. He flipped out, convinced that a rival from the golf course or some angry neighbor had taken it out on him. I reveled in the shadow of satisfaction watching Greg throw tantrums, slamming doors, and calling out to the neighborhood. He could not think straight, and I felt vindicated. But that feeling did not last long. With every effort I made, Greg grew angrier and even more twisted in his endeavors to discover who would dare to sabotage him. I began to panic, realizing I might have unleashed a monster. He turned his attention to me, learning my usual routines and scrutinizing every little detail of my life. I felt as if I was living in a high-stakes game of chess with him, and I was suddenly unsure of who was going to win. My turns turned desperate. I resorted to silly traps, a fake proposal to a local demolition derby hoping it would distract him. Yet, Greg caught on, continuing to escalate the situation. I was awkwardly backed into a corner, driven to the edge of sanity. I had taken matters into my own hands in a futile attempt at retribution, and now I sat in my living room each day, constantly glancing outside to see when he might strike next. I could feel the weight of the neighborhood's disapproval as I walked past them. I was no longer the peaceful guy they knew, but a paranoid man hiding behind resentment. In those despairing moments, I realized I needed to take one last stab at regaining my peace, but this time I had to bring forth all my courage and strength. I thought about what actually mattered more, my serenity or letting my bitterness define me. This was my final chance to end this madness. With a purpose, I went to see Greg one last time. I knocked on his door, and my heart raced as I waited for him to answer. When he opened it, I took a deep breath. I planned to confront him head-on, to explain how his actions impacted my life. But at first, it seemed that Greg had no intention of listening. He threw a sarcastic remark about noise-canceling headphones at me and tried to shut the door. Instead of backpedaling, I stood firm and spoke from my heart. I told him how his actions hurt me, that the noise was not just an inconvenience but a literal disruption to my life. I watched as rage pausing in Greg's eyes slowly melted away, replaced by something unexpected, understanding. For the first time, I sensed cracks in his brash persona, and it felt as if we stood on the edge of a new reality. He took a step back and invited me inside rather than slam the door in my face. Maybe it was the shared panic of overreaction, or maybe realizing we were digging ourselves deeper, not just as neighbors but as human beings. We talked late into the evening about life, about expectations, and at last we both shared our sides and agreed to be more considerate of each other. What started as feelings of vengeance transformed into a mutual respect. When I left his house that night, things felt different. I walked back to my own home a little lighter, almost free. The conflict that had seemed insurmountable had dissolved under honesty and patience. Maybe my old life was not gone entirely. I could find a way to coexist peacefully with Greg while also reclaiming my space. Maplewood Springs could still be mine. From then on, our relationship evolved. We still had differences, of course, mostly concerning volume levels. But when weekend training sessions sparked sounds of chaos, we developed an unspoken language of compromise. Sometimes he would invite me outside to join in, share laughs, and we even found ourselves playing golf together on that very simulator that once caused so much distress. Breaking the cycle of animosity opened the door to humor and camaraderie I never expected. It was a painful yet victorious downfall that led to growth for both of us. I learned that revenge, while enticing, often leaves scars that eclipse the goals you sought to achieve. Choosing to confront things directly changed my path. As I looked to the future, I knew now that the most powerful form of retribution lies in healing relationships rather than breaking them. Maplewood Springs had taught me about understanding, and perhaps, in the midst of chaos, it had also given me an unexpected friend.